good to go over on the website? Yep. Okay. Okay. I'd like to call our meeting to order today. And first thing I'd like to do is ask for, first, is there anything that needs to be added to the agenda? Anyone have anything? If not, I'd like to get a motion to approve the July 28th agenda as submitted.
Move to approve.
Second.
Oh, well.
We know who you are.
That's right. Chris? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay. I'd like to I'd like to have us approve the consent agenda consisting of June 23rd meeting minutes, the current pending deposited gift report, and the statistical report as submitted. Can I get a motion for that?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Okay. Sharon? Okay, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? No? That passes. Okay, thank you. Okay, public comment period. Do we have anybody for comments? No. Okay. And we do have a public guest back there, and we welcome her. Sharon's granddaughter? Okay. Nice to have you with us today. So, let's jump right into the reports. The Friends. Who do we have? Clay, you going to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Ruth apologizes for not being able to join us today, but she has a couple things that she wanted to pass along. They're currently aiming to have a members-only book sale on Saturday, August 28th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And she said, we'll kind of wait and see in terms of what safety measures they may need to adapt between now and then. They're still planning on their fall book sale first Friday and Saturday, the 5th and 6th of November, and then an educator-only half-price sale or a bag sale soon thereafter. And instead of a fall book drive this year, they're going to gather volunteers to do weeding and straightening of the sale area. Also, they're looking to hold their annual meeting late September or October. They're waiting to confirm a speaker for their schedule for that. And they're also gathering a list of charities that would be interested in possible book donations as a way to kind of thin out the surplus that's that we currently have. But that's all she passed along.
Okay, thank you, Clay.
Thank you.
Susan?
Good morning. The foundation was happy to be involved in the community workshop that was held Thursday, July 15th. For anyone who is unable to attend that event, the Zoom recording is currently on the library website, so thank you to Jen Dool for making that available. That same Zoom recording will go out on the library aware list this coming Friday, so thank you to Adam Zimmerly for that. We encourage you to share the recording and suggest any feedback and input. It should go to Scott or Susan. And then we are going to be pulling names for the promised survey respondent prizes and making notifications this week. We had 319 individuals give us their contact information. On the grant side, Scott will probably talk about this a little bit more. The E-rate Arpa grant has been submitted, and the foundation is grateful to Dominion Charitable Foundation, which awarded a $1,500 grant to Yava, organized by Jen Dool, and $1,500 to RPA Reeves, organized by Barbara Crump. Amazon Smile is up to 30 supporters. Please continue to share this opportunity with friends and family. And we remind everyone that there is a springboard retreat on Saturday, September 11th. If you haven't seen that invitation or if you haven't responded yet, please look at that. And our next foundation full board meeting will be September 15th.
Chris?
So today, the city released their survey for how to spend the $77 million. And it's the kind of thing the foundation and the Friends and the library should be all over, because we're not even listed. So we need to come up with this, you know, if we want to play for the 77 million, we've got 2 weeks that the survey is out, and then they're going to do are you going to say this? Am I saying things you're already saying?
No, it only come out this morning, so yeah.
I don't want to.
I didn't know that we were not listed on there.
No, we're listed nowhere on it, which makes it's a challenge. It's a good challenge on how to respond. I would tell you, because we're not listed, we need to get at least 300 applications in that say Richmond Public Library needs to be a priority. You know, it's mostly just check boxes, but we need to be fairly aggressive, because like I always say, there's one-shot opportunities. This will never be around again.
Where do you go to get the survey? Where is the survey?
It's a Survey Monkey. I can.
Yeah.
Today's paper Friends in the foundation.
Yeah, we'll send it out. So there is a link to it in today's RTD. It's
In
probably on
the
the
Ross,
website.
I saw it in the Ross Catro newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have till August 9th, and all of the best advice is get it in well before August 9th. If you're not organized and ready to roll, you're not on
And
the
it's
list.
one that, as Chris said, we're not mentioned anywhere in there. When you look at
Nowhere
different
are we
categories and
mentioned.
so on. But there are 2 free-form spots, I would say, too.
There were 2, yeah, exactly.
That you can say, you know, what is your highest priority? What would you like to see
Right.
most, kind of a thing. That's one spot. And then there's another one, I think, where you can.
So I looked at it very quickly.
Yeah, I did.
I think you did a better job, Bill. But we need to give guidance how to fill it out and what to specifically say on those empty spots.
Yeah.
We need to do it.
Right.
Today.
Right. And
Let's go.
very good point, Chris. Okay. Anything else, Susan? Anything else for the foundation? Okay. Scott, we're going to roll right on over to your administrative reports.
All right. Were there any questions about anything that was in my written report that was included in this report? All right.
Were there any numbers about the vaccinations? That was a good idea at Hull Street. Just ballpark.
I think in the branches we've had a little more success. I know the vaccination clinic we had here, they were here for almost 4 hours, and I don't know that they gave a single vaccine out. And they were out walking up and down the sidewalks,
Yeah.
cajoling people, trying to get them into the space to give them a shot. And we had no takers at this space. We did promote it on our social media and website and those sorts of things, but they 3 hours in, they hadn't given a shot. I don't know how it finally ended, but that's kind of strange how we've gone from begging for a shot to can't give them away hardly. So,
Yeah.
that's where we're at with that. I want to mention, I think you all saw the mask mandate changed yesterday from the CDC. I'm waiting for the upstream to give us advice on what to do. VDH is going to give us guidance as to whether we should start wearing masks indoors again, and the city will follow up on that. So I don't have an answer for that right now. I'm waiting to see where it comes from. So if you're wondering, I'm wondering too, and I think as soon as we know, we'll know. So that's where we're at with that. I mentioned 7:15, the architects came for that community meeting. Susan hit that on where you can see that. I recommend you watch that. It will be good preparation for our workshop that we're going to discuss in August for our strategic plan and master plan. And then what Susan did mention the Arpa E-rate grant, which is, I mentioned that last month, which was hotspots and laptops that we can check out. We are working through some of the challenges with that. The FCC and USAC, who administers the E-rate funding, had some very odd requirements in it. One of them was we were supposed to change our internet use access policy and define what an unmet need was, and ask for people to sign received that this computer or hotspot that they were checking out was meeting an unmet need. That seemed to be an odd thing for a library to do. It's not something we typically do. When somebody wants to check something out, we let them check it out, and we don't go into why they have an unmet need or justification for why they need it. So I explained that if we could put a sticker on the laptop or hotspot that said this device meets an unmet need, would that satisfy their need? Because they're asking you to create a record that they don't have access to, because all of our records are protected by state law that I can't show them to them. So I do not wish to create records that I cannot share that also serve no purpose to us. So that was the case I made with the group who helps us file our E-rate funding. They seem to agree with those things, and they're going to put that in our application. Now, it may be denied, but I'm hoping it doesn't, because I think we've given them enough of a solution that will satisfy the needs that they're trying to achieve with this funding. They want to get the funding out the door. They want to get broadband moving. We want to get broadband moving. So this is a pretty good opportunity. So
it's just sort of silly to think that people are coming in and taking something that they don't have a need for. So if they're taking it, it's an unmet need, but.
Right, and you know, who knows all, but I think we've found a solution to hopefully that they can work with and we can work with. So that application is going in. We are going to do laptops, like very simple laptops instead of Chromebooks, because Chromebooks kind of are, you're forced to play in the Google sandbox. A Chromebook is that. We may still get some Chromebooks, but we are going to get some just regular laptops that you can put we can put just a basic software, like a word processing piece on it, work suite on it that they can use, but also they can access the internet. So this could be very wonderful thing for our users. I'm optimistic for it. So hopefully the funding will come in and we can roll that out by the end of the year, because our goal is to get it out as soon as possible. So that's one project we're working on. We also submitted funding, and I think it was mentioned in here, to the state library. This is that one, it's like $119 million, or it's $100 million that came down to this. No, it's a couple $1 million that came down to the state library. It ends up being $26,000 for us. So we're filling out a grant application for this extra $26,000, and what we're going to do with that is use it to install a platform for scanning and faxing, public self-service scanning of faxing. So that will help us address this charge for faxing and scanning. And it'll be a real win for our community, because some faxes are demanded by some groups, and a lot of folks who have to send a fax can't afford to send a fax. And if you ever try and go and send a fax and you don't have a broken fax machine, it can be expensive if you go down to the corner store where you go to Office Max to send a fax. So this would be a technology that would allow them to do self-service fax. Really, other than the hardware and the software to install it. So that's what we'll use that funding for. So that will also meet an unmet need, but also check a box and really move things forward. So those are two of the big kind of E-rate dollars that are coming down. Chris mentioned the other, I did not know the survey was coming out, and so that just appeared this morning. So please, we'll figure out a campaign to help us get on that issue. Those are all of the big things.
Where was the flooding?
Pardon?
Flooding? Where was the flooding? Flooding in the main library.
Oh, downstairs? Yeah, we had a stormwater back up into special collections. It happens occasionally. Sometimes it hasn't happened in a few years, but yeah, the stormwater will back up into the basement of this building. We had not a major mess, but a pretty good mess, so we had to clean it up. It happened twice in 1 week. So far so good. We've had Public Works and Utilities look at it. We don't have a good solution for it at this time. Hopefully the plug in the street is cleared up so it doesn't happen again. But it's when we get about 2 or 3 inches of rain in about 2 hours, that's when we get that backed up.
I wanted to ask a question about the computers. You said, initially we talked about Chromebooks, and I believe you cannot store things on Chromebook, whereas on a laptop you can. I worry about loaning them out, people storing inappropriate things on it and then they're coming back
Yep.
and giving it to someone else.
Or even just personal info.
You
Yep.
know?
Yep. So that is a concern of ours as well. And one of the things that we'll do to manage that is there's a product called Deep Freeze, which is something that we use on all of our computer workstations. And what it does is it creates a temporary storage area for any changes that are made to that computer while you're in the session. So if you save something to the desktop or you go visit websites, all those changes are saved temporarily. When you reboot the machine, it will then delete that file, so any changes made will be gone. And so it also protects the hard drive and any operating system from any changes that are made. So as those computers go in and out, we will not have to go in and clean up bookmarks or saves. And so people will also have to know that they can't save to that machine. So they'll have to either use a flash drive, a USB drive, or they'll have to save things to the cloud, which is the similar way we do it here as well. There'll also be, I believe Deep Freeze also has, these have to be what we call SEPA compliant, which SEPA stands for Child Internet Protection Act, which was a legislation that came about 20 years ago that required schools and libraries and public institutions to filter the internet for mainly pornography. So these computers will have that on it, so it will have that piece of software on it. So that's a requirement of the FCC, and we will check that box as well. So, and that will be in compliance with our Internet Acceptable Use Policy. So,
I just sent you the email with the survey.
So, does that answer your question?
Yes,
Awesome.
thank you.
No, just to her. I can send it to her. I'll send it to Joe.
Other things on the admin reports. I mean, I think they were pretty self-explanatory on most of them. But
On the what?
on the admin reports.
That is mostly admin reports. And if there were any questions on the statistics, it does, like our circulation statistics appear to be coming back up. I was pleased to see that we're not quite where we were, but we're getting close to where we were in terms of circulation. I'm hoping as we expand our hours and folks know we're open and start overcoming, it's been fearful to go out in public. So hopefully as we go forward, in spite of this Delta variant, we continue to move progress in our circulation. We've started to do interior programs. We've had a couple story times at branches, in-person programming. We're trying to do more planning for in-person programming, and we'll hopefully get that going in September. It just takes us time to get the engine going again, so we're working on those things. And that is essentially everything we have. We'll talk about the workshop and the strategic plan and the master plan with the facilities stuff. So, were there any other questions on my report or anything from last month that you need me to address?
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, we'll into our committee reports, and as chairman, I don't have a particular report. I guess I would say that the focus right now is all around the money. It's getting the money that is available as much as we can for the master planning, the things that we want to do on that. And Chris has already hit on it that we need to be working with the city in every way that we possibly can on that. So I think we'll keep looking at that. That's just now, the mayor's just opened it up to the 140 million, I guess.
154, but
154.
77.
It's spending half of it, right?
77's in play.
Right. So there are going to be lots of demands on that. We need to try to get in line for that. I think with that, we're going to get into, most of it's going to fall into the facilities as far as what we want to do. Some of it, I think, as we talk about the master plan, is not really facilities necessarily as much as it is positioning of the library, what we are, and who we're serving, whether we need changes in that. And I think that's what I'm hoping that we can talk about a little bit maybe today if we want. But I'm also going to suggest under new business that we may need to do a work session meeting where we don't do any reports, where we don't have to take any votes, we don't do anything, where we can really just sit as a board here and talk about how we see the library. And where we see it now, where we see it going, and what some of those intermediate steps are. We're taking very much an attitude, and I think Gail and I have talked about this a little bit. It's a struggle in a way that when we look at it and we say, here's where we'd like to go, there's that tendency of all of us to to put the brakes on a little bit and say, let's make sure we're being reasonable. And I think we need to look at this and say, where do we want to go in the ideal? And then we need to look at what those steps along the way, if we don't ask for the whole apple, we're not even going to get a bite of it though. So I think we really need to look on a broad way here on that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the facilities. But one of the things we'll probably do, assuming we have that at a work meeting, I'll like to do one, is we will bring up, if y'all haven't all watched it, that Zoom meeting and look at some sections of it or get that information in other forms that shows what the survey that KEI did, some of the results on it, and some of the ideas, because I found that Zoom meeting, I was out of town, but I found that Zoom meeting was eye-opening in some ways. It was very motivating and uplifting, and that, wow, there are all these kind of things we could do. At the same time, I realized that we as a board need to get some guardrails up there, because we can't be everything to everybody. And the survey that they sent out really had a lot of that, expecting the library to solve social ills, to provide the recreation, just all kinds of things in there that I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing, but we need to look at it and say, how many of those can we effectively do? Where are we stepping into other departments in the city, or departments in the city that should be doing it? We don't want to take over those, we want to coordinate with those maybe sometime, things like that. So anyway, that's really where we are, our main focus right now. Everything other than that is just letting Scott and his team continue running the library as effectively as they're doing now, coming out of COVID, and I think that's going well. So any questions that anyone has for me, or do we want to jump into, Garrett, do we have, yes, I'm sorry, Gail.
Just one question, kind of combined with your report and what Chris told us about this other survey. Scott, doesn't the city do a survey about and rank departments by feedback or something? Because I remember once the library was ranked #1. Do they do that annually? Is that something we can cite in our defense?
I don't know that I've ever seen that.
So it hasn't been for a while. I think it was under hearing.
I mean,
actually.
it could be. I haven't seen it since I've been here.
Okay.
I know that they do a lot of that description and explanation in the budget document. I haven't seen that since I've been here. But,
okay.
So, yeah, it's curious as to why we were not included in that survey.
And there also was data, I remember, that didn't we pitch us as we have as many door counts as VMFA and the James River Parks and blah, 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 blah.
And looking at this survey, have you looked at the survey again? You haven't? The city survey?
No, haven't seen it.
I think, and Scott, it really didn't put a lot of departments. I mean, it wasn't one that there was an easy way. I don't think we can go to them and say, hey, you left us out, because they show some of the departments, but it's more of a broad category. Parks and Rec, social services, those kind of things. And my guess is they're going to say, well, we sort of see you as coming in with people saying, well, we're focused on the Parks and Rec, or and the museums fit into the same kind of category, that there isn't a category for them, for any of those activities.
So I interpreted it a little
And they took schools out, by the way.
I interpreted it a little bit differently.
Okay.
I think that reflected their initial thinking on how they're going to divvy up the
I
70.
do too.
They're moving quickly. This is their initial thinking. And initial is important, which means we still have an opportunity to change their mind, as do other organizations that were ignored. And how carefully we move and aggressively we move puts us, we're going to get some money, but it's a question of whether we get $2.50 or we get 2.5 million. So, they're moving fast. They didn't even think of us. We shouldn't worry about that, but we should not ignore it.
No. I would suggest that if we were to go back to the city and ask for a change in the survey, one, that's impractical. The city's not going to do that. But if they did do that, it might not be to our benefit.
Oh, we shouldn't. Oh, no, we shouldn't.
No, but we need to take this.
No, we shouldn't do that.
Right,
But
because
we should fill in the library library, and if there is a place to write letters to,
Right.
we should write some letters. Yeah, yeah.
Because if we do that, we don't
the
really-
They're on a time, 2 weeks. Yeah, we're not changing the
Right.
survey. We're
Well,
changing the results.
yeah.
We're elevating where we are on their priorities.
And my thinking on that is our support that we can get a lot of the people who really are supporters of the library and users really is what we're talking about, not supporters as much.
We need to have our fans speak.
We need to have them speak, but they're going to speak much more loudly if they do it separately than if they're also saying, well, I've got to rank these. And do I rank public safety above the library or not? I mean, things like that. I'm not sure we want to get into the thing where we end up being,
Right.
I think we need people to just say that's one of the important things to them.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, we need to have a strategy. I think we're a little flat-footed. Let's get into start mode and start the
Yeah.
race, yeah.
okay, let's put that and figure out if we want to. Let's come back to that as far as new business after the other reports. But I think you're right. We need something we can get out to library users, supporters, etc. I do agree with you on that. So, Garrett, do we have you?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Garrett.
I'm from Florida.
There you are. Would you like to jump into the Finance Committee report?
Yes, one thing I wanted to add basically to what Chris was saying, I think it's critically important that we want to continue to get the message out about getting more funding for the public libraries. So one thing that we did last week, Richmond Together, which is the group that I'm a part of, we put out a op-ed in the weekly, and that's the op-ed. We were talking about the importance of adding additional dollars from ARP into the library. So that's what we've done. I'm also going to be sending out probably the end of this week and next week another op-ed totally related to the public library and how we use funding for that we're giving. That can probably come out. I won't say which publication yet because we're working on that. But there's either what I would do is actually will circulate for you guys a copy of what that op-ed is going to look like. Just when you add it, and if there's anything you want to add in from the board, to make sure that we really and really push that again for our city leaders.
Garrett, let me interrupt just for a second because I can see that I'm not the only one who's struggling right now. The audio, we're having a hard time with your audio. I don't know whether you can maybe speak more directly to a microphone or we're getting a lot of feedback, I think.
I apologize.
So let's give it a try and see if it does better now.
He mentioned it. I think it's his guy.
It's his connection.
Let's do this. I'll go to one album. I'll cut off.
I wonder if we could get. What about the option of Garrett calling in on Zoom? Would that give him a better from phone? Give him a better. He wouldn't be visible, but we might get a better audio.
Yeah, he can certainly do that.
Garrett, in your Zoom invitation, there's a phone number that you could join instead of using the computer audio, or if you just want to use phone completely. Would you mind trying that and see whether on the phone we can hear you better? Okay. I think that was a yes.
He did mention op-ed, and it reminds me of something I forgot to mention in my report, is that there is federal legislation coming through in this budget reconciliation. There's $5 billion for Build America's Library Act. That would be about $119 million in federal dollars that would come to the state of Virginia. ALA has contacted library directors around the state to ask us to reach out to Warner Kane and Bobby Scott. All of those are things that I've done, but I've also written an op-ed that will probably appear in the paper tomorrow, which will be on support for this act. and it mentions what we could do as a library in terms of if we could get that money as a state. In the letter, I mentioned that for 25 years there has been no federal dollars for library construction, and that's a big deal because about the LSTA money and IMLS money kind of went away 25 years ago. So at that time, it was basically localities had to raise, if you wanted a better library, you had to raise the money yourself or put the money in yourself. So this would put funding back into libraries across the country, which we are no exception to those libraries across the country. You could go to many cities and you'll see libraries that are suffering with infrastructure, facilities, furnishings, equipment across the board. So this would be an amazing infusion of dollars for libraries. So that'll be in the paper probably tomorrow, but it's advocating for this federal dollars that could come down to us.
And specifically to ours.
It would be construction,
Because of,
yeah.
No, I mean, you also,
Right.
some specific reasons, RPL versus
Yes.
Fairfax. Say.
Yeah, and how our case is as strong or stronger than anybody else in the state or the country in terms of like construction and renovation. So hopefully you get a chance to see that. I'll make sure we send a copy of it out to you if it gets published. You know, sometimes they say things and that doesn't happen, but hopefully it will, because I know that Senator Kane has signed on to it. Warner's the one of the ones leading it. Bobby Scott has been a library supporter for many, many years, and I think he will step up to the plate. So hopefully it'll stay in. We'll see. There's lots of things in the legislation, so fingers crossed.
Okay. Did I hear Garrett back?
I am back. Can you guys hear me better this time?
Much better.
That is great news. Well, I'm sorry about that. I guess my connection here in Florida is horrible. So glad you can hear me. But what I was trying to communicate a little bit earlier was, again, just to piggyback off of what Chris was saying, you know, again, I think this a general strategy or work session would be very beneficial just to make sure we're kind of doing all that we possibly can to really push that messaging out there. But what I was going to add is that last week, Richmond Together, which is the organization that I've been a part of, we actually put out another op-ed in Style Weekly. And within that, I have a section in there where I talk about the importance of making sure we're allocating dollars to address some of the needs within Richmond Public Libraries. What I'm also planning to do is do my own separate op-ed as well. That should be coming out in the next week or so, specifically only addressing the needs of the public library. So I'll be circulating that to everyone, within the group, because again, I just wanted to see, how many ways in which we can be able to get that messaging out there to making sure that we're getting the dollars allocated out of, ARP as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. Something else that we're doing as well, in case anyone's interested on this call, because we are, again, trying to push as much information out and get as much engagement surrounding this topic. Richmond Together, we're actually hosting a virtual meeting this evening at 6 o'clock. And with that, we are going to be hyper-focused again on talking about how we can make the best use of the ARP dollars to help with building a better Richmond. So we actually have Laura Gorin, who's a part of the Commonwealth Institute. She'll be kind of giving a general overview of ARP and its provisions. We also have Kelly Harris-Braxton of Virginia First Cities, and she'll be discussing how other cities in Virginia are approaching use of ARP dollars. And then, of course, we'll have a representation from our own group, again, making our ask and how we are trying to approach that to making sure that those dollars are being allocated appropriately. Again, to everyone's point, we obviously know that there's, many competing priorities and organizations and departments that are looking for additional funding, but we have to make sure that, again, that we are screaming to the mountaintops, if you will, making sure that our ask is realistic and as high as possible. Obviously, when you go in with a lower ask, then they're going to come in lower than that. So we want to make sure that we're, setting our expectations appropriately. So even if it comes a little bit lower, we still get enough funding to be able to kind of meet the overall demands of the library. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you on that. Let me ask, in the report, we got page 17, 18, 19, just the standard monthly reports. I'm assuming that everyone got them in their packets and may or may not have had a chance to go over them a little bit. I hope, I tend to read through these and look for just any anomalies, anything that just doesn't look right, that's different. I didn't notice anything in particular when I glanced at these, or I looked through these last. Does anybody have questions for Garrett or Scott on the actual, the budget report? No.
I will say that this reflects the end of the fiscal year. You'll see that we closed out at 96.6% in about a $6 million budget. That's pretty good at hitting your mark. There'll be some funds that carry over into next year because there's always expenditures that come in June that get paid in July, and so those funds will be carried over, and some that are just.
So we don't lose that 200,000 that wasn't spent.
No, it will get rolled over is what we call it for next year, and then you'll see that it also reflects what they gave us this year, so $5.6 million, which is a reduction over last year. So that's a number that we need to change because 2 years ago we were able to have more services because we had more dollars. So that's a nuts and bolts, black and white description of where we're at with our budget.
Okay.
But it's early in the fiscal year, so we're just getting started, so there's no kind of oddball things going on with the finances right now.
And the encumbrances and things can get a little confusing as we get into the year.
That's right.
But
you'll see some
as
things,
you see them, don't hesitate to question these because I have it over and over.
and give me a call, and you'll see things like, why is security 90% spent in December?
Right.
What we'll do, we encumber the funds to allocate them to that expenditure. So that sometimes looks odd, but always the bottom line is the bottom line, correct? So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Garrett and Scott. Let's go ahead and roll on into our biggest topic of discussion other than the survey, probably is facilities. May not be that, but Janet, do you want to give us an update sort of on?
Sure, I'll try to do that. I'll just say that I, for one, am very excited about the potential of this building. So, Gail reported on our June 21st meeting at your last meeting, and that was about 3 hours on the phone with the architects.
Whoa.
And they picked our brains pretty clean. So then the next event, I think, Scott, was the night, the public event.
Right. Yeah, that was the second.
Is that the next one?
That was the next one. We brought the groups together and the architects presented, and at that meeting you got to meet one of the lead architects.
Yeah.
Doug is his first name.
And that was a small turnout, but I thought there were a lot of great ideas. So I think you said it was recorded, so if you have time, just take a listen to hear what's on people's minds about the building. And then the next day, I think, we had a smaller meeting with the architects. And they asked us a lot of questions about things they had learned so far. A huge issue is parking. Was that the biggest? What were the other huge?
A lot of discussion on parking.
Yes.
With some incredible ideas, Putting a deck underneath.
Right, so in the process, I thought they've done an excellent job of having a discussion with us, gathering kind of initial information to find a start line of where we'll start running from. And this is really a listening phase. We've kind of moved through a listening phase where we've done a survey, gathered, we had almost, Clay, was it 700 responses?
All told, getting closer to 800 actually.
So almost 800
between the paper and the web-based.
Yeah, so we had paper and web-based. We had some that we had paper and web-based in English and Spanish, so we made sure that we're trying to match everyone's connecting with them, communicating with them properly. So I think 800 is pretty great for a survey that went for a month. And we have a lot of feedback. You're going to have, people want a rocket pad on the top of the building, the people who just would like more green plants in the building. So, and that's the whole purpose of this, is to get everyone's ideas and we can't use all of them, we maybe don't want to use all of them, but we get to hear them, and that is all input into this process. I think the architects are doing a wonderful job of being considerate of that. The next day after, so that we had the community meeting where we had an open forum where the general public could come in, everybody could come in electronically or in person. I agree, we had wonderful feedback from that. Great ideas kicked around. Some of them are really wild ideas that could work. Some are maybe just awesome ideas that will work. And we also, the architects, the next day went around and spoke to every person in this building. They asked them 3 questions. What do you like? What don't you like? What could you change? And then what keeps you up at night? It was kind of a 4th question. And that was great. So they really want to hear from everybody. And that's what's important. And then they're going to take that data and start doing things. What has risen to the top, and I think is a concern that is at the top of everyone's attention. You all dealt with it when you came to this meeting today. Parking.
Yeah.
And parking is front and center a concern in Richmond. And so one of the things that was said right off the bat, you need free parking. It needs to be in this building, and we need to have it accessible.
That's brilliant.
And it makes sense. And the other thing that was a light bulb for many of the people in the room was, well, think about how many institutions in the city of Richmond that have addressed this. What did VMFA do? What was one of the first things they did in their renovation? They added a 4-story parking deck on their property, and they make it a part of their membership. And I bet their membership increased tenfold because that became a free, you got free parking with your $65 to $100 membership to the, and so now it is a destination. And I ask you, go there on a Friday night. The grounds of that place are full, and something is happening. Look at the Science Museum. The Science Museum isn't, I think they're maybe doing interior renovations, but they are adding a 4-story parking deck beside their building. And they had parking, some parking, but it was probably a complaint for them. The Library of Virginia, when they built that building 20 years ago, what did they put underneath of it? A 3-stage deck that gets used by the General Assembly during every season, and all of the librarians get their cars kicked out or they have to ride the bus to get to work for 4 months during the General Assembly. Parking is front and center number 1. And we could build we could spend $100 million and build a beautiful building, but we'll probably have, that will be a barrier to people coming to this space until we address that problem. And if you think about it, if you're a caregiver of children and you come here, you're going to have to worry about parking, and then you have to get maybe 1 or 2 children out, 1 in a stroller, 1 barely walking, and you have to go all the way down to 2nd Street and then come all the way up the ramp that's about 50 yards long to get in the building. That is a barrier, and it has to be addressed. One of the things that they looked at and they discovered, and it was kind of astonishing, was you have this 2 stories of space in your basement. Do you need that? And if you think about this library, it's 100 years old. This was a library built in 1972, and if you think about information in 1972, it was delivered via the book, via newspapers, via magazines. We had to have a large volume of space to contain that. And in those days of libraries, it was all size mattered. You really wanted a giant collection. Fill it with books, because 1 million was what you were looking for, and that's what they designed this building to achieve. We got pretty close to about 800 million back in the day. We're probably at about 400,000 right now. Do we need a collection of 400,000? That was a great question. Do we need that size collection? Yeah, that's probably a good size. It's probably right size collection. We can probably keep that mostly on the 1st floor, so we can abandon that storage downstairs and service a need that is critical to all of us. Wouldn't it be nice if you pulled up and you didn't have to worry about getting your tire marked, worry about the safety of your grandchild or your child you're pushing in a stroller? That's going to be a game changer. And Doug Moss, the architect who did a lot of speaking, said, you know, I know that we would love to do a lot of things, but if we don't address this issue, we could build a great library and they're still not going to come. And he said, surprisingly, this is the issue that could sell this project. Because and Dexter said this during the meeting, he said, there's no room around here to build a deck. The city will probably not give us that deck across the street. because fire's using it, downtown's using it, it's a revenue generator, and they have to maintain it. So that's probably not going to happen. But this would allow us to seize control of our own destiny in that regard. Do I hate to give up library space? Are there other uses that I'd love to have for it? Absolutely. But this is the 20th century library. We're in the 21st century, and it's not about ownership and warehousing lots of books. It's about access to books. And in reality, we have more access to books electronically than I physically have on the shelf. With just Hoopla alone, we have access to 600,000 items. You add Overdrive in, we're getting up there. So access is key. We can adapt this space and probably achieve the same part of our program by better, more efficient use of the space we have. So that was really the aha big deal thing that they talked about that has come out of this. And it's kind of controversial because some people are going to say, wow, that's crazy. You know, we're in an urban setting, people should want to park, but you all know it's a problem. So I think it's a strong suggestion, but it is a little bit of a shocker, and it was staggering a little bit to hear that, but it makes sense.
My question for you is, are the architects on schedule?
Yeah.
They are?
They plan to have sometime in August, probably after our meeting that we're planning on the 15th, to have some programmatic images and designs to present. By the 3-board meeting, we should have drawings and ideas because they'll be able to turn out. Now, will it be schematic engineered drawings? No, but the information that they've gathered from us, the input that you've provided, is going to inform what they can do. The big question is, one of the big questions is, what do we do with the space? Most people don't know that there's 2 buildings in here. You walk into the building and they don't know that the 28 building is enveloped in the 72 building. And one of the questions is, so what do? Do we gut the building down to the rafters and make a whole new space inside? Do we keep it kind of as it is and have 2 separate conversations and come out with a 3rd library that's this continued conversation of 2 buildings talking to one another? Or do we kind of merge and marry them better and find a way to create a space that's meeting all of our needs? The other thing, the last thing that I'm going to mention is the 2nd floor, and I never noticed this. Doug Moss brought this to my attention. He said, when you walk around the 1st floor, you notice all these pillars all over. There's pillars holding up that 2nd floor deck. And he said, when you go to the 2nd floor, it's wide open. And he looked in the rafters. He said, there are rafters up there. They're 12 foot tall, and they span that distance, so we don't have a lot of posts sitting across that ground. And was very expensive to do, but we don't know why. I don't know why the architect and the library wish to have a space like that, because it's really kind of a magnificent space because you're standing on the 2nd floor. You have this amazing volume that's wide open and you can see from street to street. They think they could do some very interesting things with that. Could be adaptable space, but also really kind of grand and welcoming and warm and very interesting to be in. But what we've done with it is we've kind of cubbyholed it and put up walls and kind of like there's a knee wall that kind of goes around that. If you took that knee wall out, you would be kind of floating on a saucer up there. It might be really interesting to look at. So these were ideas that they kicked around with us that came as a product of all of the things that we talked about. And I think it really is inspirational, like Janet said, to think about and consider that this would be a new welcoming building with all of these fascinating spaces that we could create and also solve the parking problem.
So why doesn't the floor go to the windows, the 2nd floor? Do you know why? I don't know. I think it must have been an architectural detail or feature that they really wanted to have. I think there's probably a reason for it. Doug mentioned how Frank Lloyd Wright used to do that. Have you ever heard of the Johnson Wax Building? It's in, I think it's Missouri or Kansas. It's something that Wright did. You would walk in the door and you'd be kind of low, like entering a church, and then you open up and then there's a giant cathedral. And so you enter a larger volume of space and it causes different kind of feelings and aesthetically interesting. So I think that's something that was done.
but I don't know that it's been achieved as well as maybe the intention or possibly what it could be.
So there's more space there potentially.
Yes, yes. And so to build that parking, we would remove everything in the mezzanine and the basement level, and also we would lose the auditorium because you would create more parking from that, because you can create that volume of space there. I think and I said, well, wow, we'd lose the auditorium, that's 200 people, 200 person spaces. Like, you can gain that back by more efficient use of the space that remains in the building by creating that. It has a lot of potential.
How much consideration has been given to Richmond 300 so far? Because when I hear, especially the parking conversation, I have a lot to say about this and I won't go into it now, but you know, Richmond 300 is very explicit. It has a very clear vision for this neighborhood specifically, as well as downtown in general, and that vision is encouraging people to get downtown via other methods, like not private cars.
Yep.
So that seems like one obstacle.
Right.
And of course, in my opinion, I think that is a necessary. I mean, that's like in 2021 when we have so many climate challenges. I feel my initial reaction is that it would be a mistake to be inducing more traffic downtown. And having been someone who 10 years ago when I moved to Richmond did not have a car, most of the time that I've lived in Richmond has been either without a car or sharing a car with another adult. So I've seen a lot of change in the last 10 years, and I can say, it has gotten much better in the last 10 years, and I think 10 years from now, because of environmental concerns and requirements and constraints, we're going to see Richmond change a lot. So you'll probably see more pushback from me.
No, that's fine, and that's a concern. I don't know if you saw the other day Ross Castro saying that 80% of the transportation design here in the next future plans. Did you see that article it talked about? Sadly, 80% of it is really revolving around the car. And unfortunately, that's the state we're in right now. And I'm a cyclist as well. I love that we've added bike lanes. I think we could do more. I would love to see us do more of that, but Richmond has also changed in the last 10 years. I think we had somebody brought a comment to us that in regards to the parking that, it used to be easier to park in downtown Richmond. You could show up 15 minutes before and find a spot. Now people come for an hour and drive around the block to try and find a spot that they can park, and it's a challenge. It's a difficult situation, but I agree.
I think that we should make sure that Richmond, because if the city planner says, well, that's not part of the plan, then that should be taken into account and planned for maybe early on rather than.
That's a good point.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Not that I
I do know that the folks from KEI Architects are very aware of Richmond 300 because some of our earlier conversations addressed concerns around stormwater, gray water management, EV charging stations, bike racks and things of that nature. So I do know that that's on the radar screen. And Richmond 300 has a lot of funding available that's focused on city-owned buildings and specifically energy retrofit. So when it comes to our approach to the city, to your point, I think we would be wise to consider the energy aspect of it as it is addressed in Richmond 300 and specifically in the report. So I have additional information on that. We can commiserate perhaps.
I did see the city council just essentially reversed its minimum parking requirement Monday night. So there is no minimum parking anymore. That used to be a huge issue in the fan.
Which is sort of an interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Direction. I mean, it ties in with the Richmond 300.
Yeah, so I think we're seeing a trend in that way. But Susan just mentioned the stormwater. Does KEI know about our specific issue? Okay, because I don't want to go through $100 million of changes and not have that fixed.
Water coming up.
Yes, that would not be good to our donors.
And I think you bring up a really good point there, and it's one that I was surprised when I watched the Zoom on that parking was such an issue. and I talked to Scott about it a day or two after, and apparently you hear it a lot. It hasn't seemed like a problem for me, and I've lived in Richmond 59 plus years, so a big part of my life. And, you know, came down here as a kid, in school, in college, came down here, you know, come down here now. It's not been a big problem, in my view, to come here. But maybe it's the times that I choose. I mean, I'm not in the deck over there. You know, I pulled up, there was parking on Franklin, I didn't even have to go around the block. More often than not, I find that to be the case. On the other hand, I know when I was taking my kids, we went to the local branch where we could pull in and park and so on. So, I mean, I do see that it's a little bit different if you're, you know, a solo person walking versus, as you said, the stroller, the kids, etc. And if you're trying to be here at a time that there's a big event, there may be more crowded times. But I do see what you're saying as far as not just giving up the space, but are we encouraging the right behavior? I don't know that that's our job as much as it is, you know, to meet the needs of people. These are things we all need to kick around a little bit, though, because we're going to give up something if we put a parking deck in there that holds what, 80 cars. They're saying they can get about 80 cars in there. If we were to do that, we are giving up other things that we can do with that space. And I think what we don't want to do is plan based upon the way people are using the library today only. We need to plan for that, but we've also got to look at what they're going to be using it for in 30 or 40 years, or else we're missing the boat on that. So I'm probably going to be with you a lot on I'm not against doing it, but I don't know whether that's the whole 80, whether there's a way to split it, whether we have to do it, whether, you know, I don't know. I mean, I was, like I said, I was just surprised the parking was as big an issue as it was.
Well, I've lived here all my life,
yeah.
And I have used this facility very rarely because of, you know, fear of not being able to park. When my kids were, you know, small,
Yeah.
we went to the branches, which meant we only had access to, you know, book checkout and story times and things of that nature. I see this facility as being so much more than that, gathering spaces for multiple people. And while I do, you know, sympathize with the environmental impact, you've got to get parking down here to get people into this facility. This could be so phenomenal for Richmond. Sure. You know, as I said, a gathering space, networking, all kinds of things can happen in this building. And, you know, this is the time, but
It is.
people, I'm telling you, people I know are not going to come
Because
here
they're going to drive.
because
Yeah.
they're out of fear of not being able to park anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's an issue. And as Scott said, he's a bicyclist. I cycle, and I mean, I can remember riding down here from the far west end of Henrico, you know, in the early 70s probably. You know, most people were driving, but I think we can't assume that people will find other ways here. The public transportation, GRTC's fares are off. You think that would make it a lot easier, having no bus charges for people to come over, etc. I don't know that it's actually making a difference to our patrons. So I do think we have to think about that, whether it's the space inside the building, whether it's something adjacent, whether it's using some of the outdoor space that we have. All of these mean we're giving up something, pretty much. So we just have to look at that, which is really, are we finished on the facilities report specifically? Do we just sort of?
Unless there are more questions, okay. They are going to take all of the data. We've had a good discussion about that community meeting and the big concept. So the next thing is to see what they come back with.
And
I'm excited. I'm hoping that.
And I think that's really where we're going with the work session in August, as far as getting to the details on that. Right now, none of us, I mean, what I'd like to do, first off, I've got a little bit of a scheduling conflict, because for some reason I thought we were on the 3rd, maybe we are, maybe that is the 3rd Wednesday. I had us down as yeah, that is the 3rd Wednesday. Is there any way that we could look at the 25th instead of the 18th?
I'm out of town.
You're out of town. Okay, can we do this? If we want to do a work session to really sit down and get into things like, what's our priority for parking? What's our priority for, I mean, When you look at the Zoom, you'll find people came up with ideas. They were talking about, oh, such and such a library lends out camping gear. You know, I'm not sure when you do that. Another library has, I'm not sure we don't. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, you know, another one they talked about has showers. You know, I don't know that that's our responsibility or a good use of the library. I don't even know it's one we want to manage, particularly with the Y-Light over here.
Right.
You know, there are other things, but there were a whole lot of ideas that they kicked around, and we're not going to be able to do everything in there. So I really think that we need to come together as a board and say, here are things that we think are important for, say, 2030, and also maybe for 2060. You know, we got to look at the real immediate, but we've got to look 30, 40 years down the road. And there's so many ideas they've come up with already that I think we haven't given them that input. And the facilities committee is trying to do that, I know, but I think as a board, we need to have ideas for that. That also ties very closely with the November 11th meeting, where we're going to talk about fundraising. September. What did I say? November. September, sorry. September 11th meeting, 9/11 meeting. We're going to talk about how we're going to raise funds, how they're going to raise funds, really. I mean, that's the foundation's got fundraising. We're not trying to take over that at all in any way, shape, or form. But the plans from the building tie very directly to who they approach, how they approach it, where we may be able to get money other than, and in addition to government. I mean, the government funds are also factored into that. I mean, will come in there. But this is where we're looking more for outside funding. So we need to do that. Okay, so what do y'all think about having a work meeting on the 18th? Can we do that? Okay, can we do that at a time like or in the morning? I have something I need to be finished with by noon that day. Is it possible?
So
To do it from 9 to noon?
9 till 11, maybe?
That works for you, 9 to 11.
I can do 9 to 11 that day, and I apologize. I had it down as the 25th.
No, that's good.
But if y'all can, how's that look for everyone's schedule? We're moving on to new business, obviously, right now, as far as schedule.
I don't know if we had anything from governance.
Whoa, Emily.
No updates from
I'm sorry.
The only thing I might add with governance is in the back is a calendar of meeting dates for this next year. I don't know if you all saw that. So if that's all right for your approval, we can proceed with that.
But we're talking about changing that August 18th.
We changed the time on that August 18th.
Yeah, we just.
Oh, no, we have, sorry. We've got it 9 to noon. Can we move it to 9 to 11?
Yeah.
And, or we can leave it at noon. I may need to leave at 11:30.
Yeah.
Want to leave it at noon, and if Chris will ably take over if I leave.
We could have lunch afterwards.
Okay, you want to do that?
We can do that.
Wait a minute. What do you want now?
On the August 18th meeting, we had it scheduled from 9 to noon.
Yeah.
We can either leave it that way, or Chris, you may need to take over at
2 hours is
11:30
plenty.
or so.
Well, really, 2 hours is about,
Yeah, that's.
I think we can move it from 9 till 11 if that works for y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just schedule it from 9 till 11 a.m. that day.
Right.
Okay, and we'll jump in promptly. Okay, and I like to see that we've got the Belmont, Ginner Park, so on. I'm just curious, why are we putting just purely electronic meetings in the schedule? Emily, are you?
No, it's like a dual meeting. It's electronic and open.
Okay, so like on February 24th, March 24th, April 28th, how does that differ from the May 26th?
Those are past.
Those are past, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
those are 2021s, those are past,
Right.
okay.
So
we're
this
fine.
would be for the rest of the year.
The Belmont, yeah, I'm just lost, I'm sorry, that's not, I'm looking at it as a whole year thing, they're the 2021s, not 2022s, okay.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
So we just do this through the calendar year, not
Yeah.
the fiscal. So we're alternating with Maine.
Yeah, because we've had so much like change in the meetings. The meetings have kind of been all over the place, electronic and otherwise, so we just wanted to do an update.
Okay.
So, and this will spell out the rest of the year.
Right.
What's the positivity rate today?
I have no idea.
Today, I know yesterday it was 4.7.
It's going back up. It's up to 4.
Yeah.
You okay with?
We might be meeting them. online.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, so, but the plan for the August 18th meeting, that is both to talk about master planning as well as the building.
Master planning and and the
Strategic
fundraising.
plan.
Really, I mean, those two together. It's positioning the library for the future, I guess is how I see it. The master plan is, I guess, about the physical plan of the library when you think about the architects doing it, but it really comes down to how we see the library. And that also ties very directly to the funding, as far as what the library is doing.
So, okay, I thought I understood it, but now I'm not sure
Okay.
I do. August 18th, we're talking about what we think is important to do. Is this the strategic plan 2021 to 2026?
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
That's
it should be,
It'll
it
come out
should be
of
the
that.
strategic.
No, it's not.
Okay, that's
But
not
we
part
will
of it.
have that to draft.
I mean, are we just kind of developing a vision for
We're-
what we would like this building to be?
Oh.
Bill, the meeting is a working session
Right.
for the
Strategic plan,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 9/11 will be-
One subject,
Yeah,
Okay.
the master plan,
yeah.
No.
No master plan, but can we talk about
Yeah.
the,
strategic plan.
Yeah, we can talk about the strategic plan. The master plan is part of it.
master plan is part of the strategic plan.
Right.
So is the fundraising part of the strategic
Right.
plan. That's fine, okay.
Right. So all of that will come together
Right.
on the 18th.
Right.
Yeah.
So is
We need to come out of this with feedback that the facilities committee can take back to the architect. We need to have what we want to discuss, I mean, as y'all are talking with them, that what we think. We need to be able to have something that we as a group have 1, 2, 3 different focuses as far as part of the strategic plan that'll tie in with the direction of the library and fundraising.
Right,
Because
right,
there are, and Chris has been really leading this very closely or heavily, I think, as far as some of the ideas, as far as getting our collection up to date a little bit, and with Scott, obviously, as far as some of the fixing, some of the inequities that happened over the last 100 years with the library. That also ties in with the fundraising, when we go out to groups that may help give us money to do those things. So I see it as a work session that it'll be the strategic plan, and it's going to cover all those types of things that are critical
I'm
to that
anxious to
plan.
talk about the strategic plan, so
Yeah.
this is great.
And the strategic plan, when we put it together, is a 5-year plan.
Yep.
We're looking
Really for
beyond 5
I'm
years.
with
Okay,
you.
I mean, that's
I'm
what
with you, Bill. I'm with
the
you.
5 years is not the.
I'm with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I keep coming back to the,
No, I'm on the exact same page.
okay.
one last question, I'm sorry. Do we have a deadline in mind for when that strategic plan would be completed? Because 2 hours, we won't get that done, but I'm glad we're having that first group conversation.
The formal strategic plan, we should get done, or have most of it done to the point the library staff can finish it after
Right.
that, I think. The discussions should be done from that.
Right, so what's been happening so far is we've been doing a lot of work on the strategic plan. We've done the survey. We have staff filling out a survey right now. So the end of this week, staff will have completed a survey on past the strategic plan, where they think we're at, where they want to go. Then next week, our branch managers are all going to have meetings with staff to get verbal feedback, more information, gather that information. Following week, I'm going to have a workshop with them, with those managers, where we discuss it and we craft some ideas. I'm going to come to you on that date. Probably before that, you're going to get some information with this data synthesized, so when you come to the meeting, you'll have been able to look at all of the stuff we've been putting together. I'm hoping to have kind of the bare bones outline of what we could have for a strategic plan, because in reality, we're not going to deviate too much from the track we're on. The map has been laid in. There are things we need to add and things we need to delete, and maybe the format will change. So that'll be kind of the discussion of where we need to go. But we can also, I'm amenable to, wide open to new ideas as well. So that would be hopefully what we can do on the 18th. And then after that, we'll take what you all say, work it around some more, come back to you, we can work it some more, and then by the end of this, hopefully by October, November, we'll have a final version that we can authorize and a roadmap to follow.
And I think our voice is important because we're representing the patron.
Correct, yep.
So staff see things the way they should see things, and they have knowledge there's no way we could have. But patrons, users, people who are not going to the library and could go to the library, yeah, that's our job.
Yes, and you will get the feedback from the survey. I plan to give you that full survey to look at, so you can read all the comments, wide open comments, you'll be able to look at those. I've had staff pull together just statistical data, so census tract information, information, all of that stuff will come to you.
Great.
So we can really assess those things, and hopefully we've gathered together all of that information, and your job will be to absolutely reflect our patrons' view, your knowledge base of what you've learned is serving on this board, so we can kind of determine a path.
And in my view, and maybe I'm wrong, y'all can argue it or tell me I'm wrong, I see the strategic plan as a shorter term, more tactical. You know, here's what we're doing in these next 5 years. And I mean, just because of the way the strategic plan is written, which is why I think we have to be looking at that longer. I don't know that fits into the strategic plan structure as much. I mean, the strategic plan is, what are we going to do in these next 5 years? More than it is, what are we positioning the library for in the next 50 years? So that's why I keep coming back to, and I think where all of us really fit most is representing the current stakeholders, but also the future ones here. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for us to look out more than the 5 years, which is why the strategic plan has tactical things. We can do this, we can do that. But tied in with this whole master planning is looking at how do we position us so that we're flexible enough that a board in 2050 still has a building and things set up so that they can do a 5-year plan that deals with what people need in 5 years for them. You know, we're not going to know what they're going to need in 2055, but we can make sure that the building is in position that it can do a lot of the things that they might want to do. So I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it differently, but that's my view of it. Okay, I'd like to do one thing. We're running a few minutes late, but let's take a stab, if we can, in new business here of talking about this. We've got 10 days roughly before that survey closes at the city. What do we want to say? Chris, you want to start with some ideas?
I guess I have to.
You sort of brought it up.
Yeah, happy birthday.
I mean, I've got ideas, but I don't want to be the one always talking.
So in my experience, we're doing a call to action. Mm-hmm. And a call to action gives people some very specific information. You know, fill out the survey, do the following things. If it's important to you, please write in libraries, because we're shocked that it's not there. The other thing a call to action does is it expands our world. So it says, and please forward this to 5 of your friends or whatever, so that they too can have a chance. And hopefully those are all library lovers. So you tell them specifically what to do, and then you tell them to spread the word in clear call to action language.
Yeah.
That's just what you would say, Bill. Yeah.
And I think, I don't know about that, but I think you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what we
Love
need.
a man who says I'm right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't hear it at home at all. So.
I don't know, I don't believe it either,
We need
but
to do that in the next couple of days.
Absolutely right. Time.
yeah, I mean,
it's an opportunity.
mm-hmm.
We need to be fighting for our seat at that 77 million.
It is, and I don't know how the study works as far as whether you can fill it in more than once. So I don't know how whether it goes with
or if you
your.
have multiple emails, if you can. Yeah, we should.
Well,
let's not game it.
No. We don't want to game it. But if you, I was just going to say, if you are in a family with 2 or more library users, you know, each person should be, and if it may mean having to go somewhere else to get a different IP or something, so that it doesn't, you know, block you out the second time. But we do want to encourage people individually, not a household type of thing. Each one is sort of a vote that counts.
The other thing, Scott, you're the charmer. I would be talking to your city colleagues saying, you know, we're sad you weren't mentioned, but we know you've got a lot on your plate.
Right.
I think you're going to be surprised at the number of responses you get in for people who say they want an expanded hours at the library, or whatever.
Right.
I mean, you should be preparing them, so I think we can pull this off. When we do, they kind of go, well, Scott already gave us the heads up on that. Okay, yeah. So that would be the other.
So the call to action is to complete the survey,
Tell us
including the library.
specifically what to do on the survey.
Well, okay, this is the question I had. Okay, and forwarding to friends, that's the general. But the specific is, what do we want people to say about the library, if they ask us? I mean, do we want to say, like you mentioned, expanded library hours? That's
Okay.
important, but that's not going to be a funding, this isn't going to be a funding source for that in all likelihood. This has got to be more capital type things or not?
I didn't read it carefully.
I'm not sure.
Susan is our
Yeah,
guru,
right.
and Ruth,
So-
those guys will do the careful work.
Do we need to?
You've got the money until November 2024.
Right.
So it is not money that needs to be spent like much of what we're playing with.
Right.
So
in
what we,
12 months.
I think what we need to do is tell that we have needs just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And this is something Susan's talking
I
about.
don't-
We deserve to be funded.
I don't
Right.
think this has a room in it for a lot of.
It doesn't, it
Right.
doesn't. But if people ask, and do we want to say, collections need to be updated? Facility needs to be updated?
I would not
You
go.
don't- you wouldn't go to that
I would
level.
not go- I would not go
Just
there.
fund the library better.
The library is so important for children, for people looking for resources.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would just say why it's important. I would not put a stake in on
Okay.
what we're gonna do.
On
with
specific
money.
things.
Yeah.
okay.
We were,
Do we approach the media with something like this? I mean, I don't know as far as publicity or anything is concerned, but there are a whole lot of neighborhood publications and, Free Press and Style Weekly and all that.
this is where we rally our friends, and they will carry that message for us.
I'm just worried
And we
word
may
of
wanna-
mouth is,
we wanna
is
may wanna
still
make a
kind of
statement.
limited, but
Yeah.
if there's any way it can be published, it might reach a larger audience.
And how do we
I
get
think
this?
you're onto something. I think just a post on Nextdoor
Yeah,
to say if you haven't fill it out honestly, but I'm a library lover and they were missed. So, yeah.
And where is the survey? How can we get to the survey? You said you're gonna have that.
I
Okay,
sent it to you.
okay.
Yes.
So does the survey have a place where you write, or is it just checking?
It's just
almost all
check-ins.
check boxes,
There are
priorities.
2 boxes where you write in
Yeah.
things, but it's not like you write in a statement of
Not a lot of room, really.
belief. So again, I
There-
did
there-
not
There's
read it
there's a,
thoroughly.
what's your number one priority? I mean, a lot of it's ranking things. Then there is a box that is sort of a, if you were gonna put, what's the number one thing you would
Yeah,
spend on?
and that's
And
where
then there's
you
an
put
explanation.
library.
Yeah, and then there's an explanation of why.
Right.
There's room for that.
And
So that's
we
the
should be
appeal. We
focused
use the
on
library,
why,
yeah.
not the what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll get that link sent out. Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed when I read the survey. I mean, because of the way.
So was I, so was I.
But I don't
then
think
again,
it's,
we shouldn't worry about it.
no, I really
Shouldn't
don't
worry
think
about it.
it matters that much. I think what matters is that we show a lot of support.
That's, and a lot of support,
Lot.
so they
Mhm.
don't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a very simple call to action here.
Right.
Complete the survey,
Yeah,
ask
but
them
be
to include
clear.
RPS.
Complete the survey, but in the empty boxes,
Library.
The library.
be clear what you want. People won't do it unless you tell
So,
them.
yeah.
They won't think through it,
There's-
as I clearly have not, so.
Those 2 spots are the only places,
Right.
if I had
Because
one
there's
quick look
no
at it this
other-
morning.
The library is never mentioned, so,
No,
yeah.
it is not.
And that's why it's a call to action.
Right.
Well, they forgot us and we're so important.
Right.
So going to the question of other, I guess Sharon, you asked, publications and getting things out there. Sure, we can obviously contact the Free Press. I think they'd be very supportive. Is Ms. Boone still running the Free Press? Is Raymond Boone's widow, is she running it or is somebody else taking over? I'm not even sure who.
Bonnie, what's Bonnie's last name? Bonnie was
Okay.
probably the one you need to talk to.
Okay, So I think we can contact them style.
Either do
We
letters.
can do that and say, yeah, and that's an easy one to do also. The RTD's been very supportive actually about
Yeah.
running things, so I don't think there'll be any problem there. But I was gonna point out, our librarians are really good at hitting the social media.
Yep.
They in their, I mean, somebody said next door, and next door is right, but next door in Richmond is multiple
Right.
next doors. So, our,
Each branch is connected to next door.
right, they've done that, yeah.
They can push out.
Chris, thank you, sorry about
Thank you. No, sorry to leave early.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Yes. Okay, so I think we're covered on that, and Sharon, I do think at some point, and I suspect it'll be after the 9/11 meeting, that we'll want to do a publicity that Susan will be leading with the foundation, and we probably as a board will make some type of statements, you know, there'll be things coming out of that. I don't think that we do any of that as a board until after that joint meeting in 9/11. Like, I don't think, while this has to be done quickly for the study, the survey, I think the other needs to be more thought out, and we need to be on the same page as the other boards. All three boards need to be together. So, okay? Any questions? We are running a little behind, but I apologize. Nothing? Okay, I'm gonna ask.
Parking spaces.
Hmm?
Gotta get to our parking spaces.
We do, that's
You
right.
have chalk on your tires.
I'm still good even on my 2 hours. Okay, if I can ask that we approve meeting in person from 9 till, we'll change it from 9 till 11. If people are still talking after that, I just am gonna have to leave close to 11. So, okay, so if I can get a motion to approve that?
Move to approve.
Okay, that's Gail.
Second?
Second was Sharon. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay, and then I'm gonna also ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Okay. Second, and all in favor, aye? Opposed?